Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Chattering with Nicholas Vince. And in a few moments, I'm going to be chattering with David Chaudoir. I've just realized something, that I'm probably on the wrong microphone, but never mind. We won't worry about that. It's the one thing I didn't get around to checking before. So just in case, if my microphone has just got so much better, hopefully it's a big blue snowball. Right, I'm going to introduce David in just a few moments, but I keep on moving my head too much. My camera keeps on auto-focusing. I just wanted to thank Gary Smart and the guys from Dead Mouse Productions, Adam and Eastwood and Chris and the guys who've been on the show, because I got this lovely gift in the post during the week. This is Simon Bamford, basically, as an action figure. He's done some amazing work on this documentary, playing Roddy McDowall, playing Peter Vincent, Fearless Vampire Killer. And I do also feature on the back, if you can just about see me, in the really, really bad wig at the top of the poster. So I'm looking forward to seeing that coming out in 2016. It's really very, very exciting. So I did just want to do that quick shout out, and another quick shout out to Kate Shenton. Congratulations to Kate Shenton for the fact that Egomaniac is going to be screening at Fright Fest this year. That's going to really make my day, as part of watching that, with a whole bunch of other people there as well. Anyway, let me just introduce David Chaudoir. Good evening, David.
Hello, Nick. Lovely to see you.
You too, sir. You too. Thank you so very much indeed for joining me. We're going to be talking about your latest short film, Bad Acid, a little bit later on. But before we go much further, can you were mentioning to me when we were warming up that you've got some screenings coming up. You've got 2 screenings coming up that have been notified.
Yes, obviously you were there at the Shortest Nights, which was the event in East London last weekend or the weekend before last. That was its UK or London premiere. And then, like anybody else who's made a short film, I'm waiting notification from Film Freeway. And I've got a couple of screenings so far. One of them is in Santa Monica. It's a brand new festival called Fash Fest, fantasy, action, horror, and science fiction, or something like that. And then I got invited by Popcorn Horror to be part of their October Halloween festival. Again, it's a sort of a one-off, as it were, which is up in Glasgow. So those are the 2 notifications so far, Nick.
Out of curiosity, how many festivals have you submitted to?
I think that I've submitted to, I think about 20 so far, maybe more. Because what I've tried to do, like anybody who's made a short film, is, I suppose it's like spread betting, I suppose. Because the film roughly falls into the horror genre, I've put into horror festivals. And I've also put into BAFTA accredited festivals as well. And I've also put into some horror festivals around the world, like in Australia, and I've put into a comedy festival in New Zealand. So you know, I've done a number, but obviously the big one is Fright Fest. So that's the one that I really love to be, part of. But we'll see.
Yes, I think the notifications are coming out at the end of this month, end of July now.
Yeah.
So, and that, of course, is the one thing that I do actually have to announce. I did mention last week that I'd be making a big announcement this week, and that is that The Night Whispered, my first short film as writer and director, is now finished and has been submitted to 9 festivals so far, including 9 festivals so far, literally on Friday night, because I was up very late at night actually finishing it and doing rendering. so I can get a file up onto Film Freeway. I'm now looking at it again and looking at it in the cold light of day and thinking, actually, I think I can probably get a better quality one up on Vimeo. And put a link in, but because of the time, all the festivals I wanted to get in basically were finishing on Friday. It was actually a Thursday night. No, it was on Thursday. I tell a lie. So in terms of that, I'm going to be doing a trailer. Have you done a trailer for Badass?
Yes, I have. I've done a trailer. Yeah, It's a mute one because I didn't want to give away too much, and I didn't want, it was before the sound had been mixed properly. So I just wanted to do a teaser which is gives a little hint of it. But yes, it's quite useful to do a trailer because of putting it on Twitter, and I've had 2.5, I think 3,000 views of the trailer. So and on Vimeo you can track, what's interesting, you can track the embeds, so where it's somebody's embedded it, so I can see how many times it's been played on Freeway. I can see how many times it's been played off of a Facebook post or a off of Twitter, and then also you can track geographically as well. So you can see, like, when the good thing about when you submit your film, Nick, via Film Freeway via Vimeo, is you can say, okay, I've submitted to Canada, have they actually watched it? So you can that's interesting. And also, not only does it give you plays, it also gives you completions as well. So somebody might have watched it, but I'm hoping that they just got to the end credits and then stopped. Rather than say, this is shit. The analytics on Vimeo are great, so I would strongly recommend you do that.
Yeah, I think I need, because I've loaded it onto Film Freeway just because of time and
deadlines,
deadlines and so on, because but now, looking at it and Vimeo and do I want to put it up at 720 or 1080, and I'm now been working with DaVinci Resolve. I have been learning DaVinci. This is why I'm being very quiet. I have been learning DaVinci Resolve for the last month,
right?
Because the guy who's helping me do the coloring and so on and did some VFX for me, basically got a job. So he had to concentrate on it. It's like, okay, this and this is just ridiculous now. I need to be able to get this stuff in, because I was very aware that the Fright Fest thing was coming up. So that's what I'm hoping. So it's loaded on the Film Freeway at the moment, and I'm going to want to swap that out with a link to the Vimeo, and that's probably going to go back to tonight after the show, or first thing tomorrow. It's just like the moment I finish doing anything at the moment.
As long as you don't walk off now. Hang on.
No, you're totally safe. This is the computer, which I do my editing and so on. So it is interesting, isn't it? I'm gonna stop waving my head around. I keep on going out of focus. Okay, so we'll come back. We'll talk more about Bad Acid a little later on, if we may. But what I wanted to do was kind of start. I was reading your biography. I love the fact that you made your first film when you were 10 years old, a 2-minute epic.
Yes.
So
what it was myself and a friend, he had a standard 8 camera, which is different even from a Super 8, even though I put Super 8 on the biography, because I don't think anybody would understand what a standard 8 camera was. But a standard 8 camera took a double sprocketed 16mm film on a single roll, and you would load this into the camera and it would play through, and you'd watch the counter, and then it would unspool, and then you'd have to take the daylight loading spool out, turn it around, reload it, and then shoot the other part of the film. And what the lab would do was they would split it down the middle and then join it in the middle. So it was prior to Super 8, with the cassettes that you put in, a cassette of film, it actually came on a single 16mm daylight loading spool, which had double perforations. And what we did was we went round people's houses collecting old newspapers, because there was a paper mill down the road. So we got all these papers together, and my friend's parents' garage was full of these newspapers. And then we took them to the weigh station, and then they gave us money for the waste paper. It was early recycling. You know, this is in the mid-70s. And with that money, we then went and bought rolls of film, and we made these, you know, 2.5 minute, 3 minute little shorts. One of them was this go-karting thing. Another was a horror. We had a madman with a lawnmower. And I went down to the local butchers and said, look, I'm making a horror film. 12-year-old kid turning up at the butchers. I'm making a horror film. Can I have some bits and bobs? And they gave me a couple of pig's eyeballs and a lung and some guts. And I walked back with this bag of stinking stuff in a carrier bag. And then we would shoot on the fly, you know. And the other thing is, we never edited anything. We had to we shot, and then it would be cut. So we were doing in-camera editing. So if it went wrong, which it often did, you had to just move on. You know, it's like one of them about a mad. Sorry, carry on.
No, I was going to say, it does remind me of talking to Dan Palmer, which I did a few weeks ago, and he went through a very similar experience. You know, but he made a feature film in a similar.
What, on Super 8?
No, I can't remember if it was Super 8. It was on film, and he talked about the fact, you know, you had to send you the developer before you could see what you got, apart from anything else. And so, yeah, absolutely extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And okay, so you did that. That's obviously where you started. You went to St. Martin's College of Art, yes, and
that's right, yeah.
But you kind of changed course, or you didn't do what you?
Yes, that's what. Yeah, I was at St. Martin's, and I was on a course called the Fine Art Film course, and it was very, very experimental. And it was, you could wave around a camera on the end of a broomstick, or film a puddle of water for an hour, and they would have loved it, as long as it had some kind of political meaning, or some kind of statement. And I thought, I was going to film school, but no, it was fine art film school. And I swapped onto a course which is called audiovisual motion graphics. It wasn't actually called motion graphics. That term hadn't even been invented. It was called graphics audio visual, and they had the very first Macs, the Mac Classic. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't get anything from a computer onto film or tape in those days unless you had a machine called a Harry, which stored digitally 1.5 minutes. And I went to Channel 4 News and worked there in downtime, and did some stuff there. And it was just basically because I'd met a couple of people who had done the fine art film course, and in the street, and I said, well, how's it going? What are you up to? Thinking that they were going to be on set smoking a cigar and directing their first feature. And one of them said, well, I'm running at this company. And then the other one said, well, I haven't had any luck in getting anything. I'm working childcare. And this sort of rang alarm bells. And I swapped over to that course and started doing little bits and bobs. I used to do Super 8 on music videos occasionally. I did the design thing, and I was very, very lucky in 1990 when I graduated to get a job with a television production company, which was unusual that they had their own edit facilities. It was a company called Diverse, and they were set up with money from Channel 4. And they were a sort of hotbed of left-wing filmmaking and documentary making and stuff like that. But they had a mandate from Channel 4. So I was very lucky that I started there, and I got to work on documentaries, and I got to work on factual programming for Channel 4. And one of the programs that I worked on was called Moving Pictures, which was presented by Howard Schuman, who had written the Hitler Diaries. He'd written a TV series on the Hitler Diaries. And
he didn't actually write the Hitler Diaries. Just
no, he didn't. He wrote a drama about the the aftermath. A wonderful chap, and I cut my teeth in making graphics and animation and stuff like that there. And Moving Pictures at the time, it was a fantastic show on BBC Two, and they went and interviewed Tarantino when he was making Reservoir Dogs, and they went to see Sam Arkoff from was it called UI American Pictures or something like that, the king of the B movies. And and I've talked with the producers about who they've been to see. Like, one of them went to see Catherine Bigelow, actually started going out with Catherine Bigelow. Anyway, so it was fascinating, in terms of films. And I was working and I was earning money, and I wanted to support myself, and I was very worried at the time about. I think, like yourself, you're writing now, aren't you, Nick? And you're directing, and I hold great store by the story that Truffaut said, which was a 20-year-old came up to him and said, "Monsieur Truffaut, how do I want to be a director. What do I do?" And he said, "Well, come back in 20 years' time." I think there's some truth in that. I think there's some, because having said that, I went to a screening the other evening. Madeline Bauer, who's in Bad Acid and Adonis and Aphrodite, invited me to a screening of her short film. And she'd laid on a screening at the Soho Hotel. It was incredibly swanky, wonderful place. And she'd invited two women filmmakers who had both worked on Bad Acid. And one of them was the AD, and the other, Kyla Simone Bruce was the AD, and Patricia Gupta was the second AD. And I went to see their films, and they were so mature, and they were so so well made, and I thought, my God, I'm a little kid, but in comparison, writing horror. But I think you've got, it's going back to what I love, I suppose, and I don't feel as if I can write drama and anything necessarily grown up. I think working within the horror genre has allowed me to sort of reconnect with the stuff that I love, and I don't even know where this was going, Nick.
It's okay. All right. Well,
anyway, I started working in TV, to earn money, basically, and then I've had as you've seen in my bio, I've gone through a number of different iterations. I worked as a graphic designer. The first 5 years of my career were doing, factual TV. I then moved to a company called Planet 24, which is an entertainment production company. And Planet 24 made The Big Breakfast on British TV, and they made Gaytime TV. I did the titles for Gaytime TV, and I did the titles, a number of different things. And it was around the time of the Canary Wharf bomb. Can you remember that?
Vaguely, I'd forgotten not until you'd mentioned it.
It was the largest bomb in London that the IRA set off.
Oh, right.
Before the city bomb, I think, because they blew up a building in the city as well. It was near the end of their campaign.
Yes, I do remember it now. Gosh, I had forgotten all about that. Yeah.
And that the whole of Canary Wharf was where we were, because the bomb was planted probably 200 yards away from my office, and my clock was blown off the wall and landed on the ground, and it was forever set at the time that the bomb went off. And 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from the anti-terrorist squad wanting to interview me. And they came and interviewed me because I'd been shooting the day before. The day before the bomb went off. And I'd been on Canary Wharf around Docklands, filming some inserts for a new show that they were pitching about fashion. And they wanted to look at the tapes to see whether there was any, and I caught it because I'd literally walked around the site where the bomb was planted. So anyway, that's a by the by. So I worked at Plan 24, and then I got more into design per se, and I shifted from doing graphics for television programs, and I started doing channel identities. So I worked on Channel 5, and I launched ITV2, and I worked on a German television channel, launching that. And so my career went more into design.
Right.
But I always had a passion to make films, and I didn't know the best route in, as it were. So I started directing music videos. I continued doing my motion graphics for freelancing, but ideas, and I got taken on by a production company, and I did a small video for a soul singer, and then I started getting more and more sort of dance music, because as soon as you do one thing, you're labeled, oh, he's the guy who did the soul thing, the dancey thing. Oh, and it was around about 2000, so I started getting more stuff for dance, and it's not my thing at all. I shall confess that I did a music video for Danny Minogue. So.
I don't think that's necessarily a confession. That's something that you did,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I that's kind of where my career was doing. It was when house music was sort of crossing over into pop, and it wasn't my thing. So I got signed up by another production company. And I said, please, I want to do bands. So I did some music videos with bands, and I did Athlete, who were relatively big in the mid 2000s or something, and then I did Graham Coxon, who was in Blur, and he had a side project or something, and I did a band in Liverpool, an electronic band called Ladytron, and I worked with another band who were at the time doing interesting stuff. That was Star Sailors. So I was making stuff, and I was filming stuff, and I was working around film crews, and I was grading stuff and seeing how stuff got edited, and that kind of thing. But it never really satisfied, and there was this all the time. People were saying, "Oh, music videos, it's on its way out. It's the budgets are falling," and I was lucky enough to work on a Athlete video, which I think the budget was either 75 or 80,000 or something like that for a 3-minute film. And I, that's good money. But then by the end of it, they were hovering around the 30,000 mark. And now I think you're very lucky to make a music video for $3,000. Probably, the bottom's fallen out of the market. There's a wonderful Hunter S. Thompson saying that says the music industry is a long plastic money trench where dogs and pimps run free, and good men die like dogs. And I'd say the plastic money trench hasn't got any money in it anymore. It's just a plastic money trench with the pimps and the dogs.
So, and this is fascinating. So, how did you approach music videos? I mean, you say you weren't particularly fond of dance necessarily. So, how did you approach these things? Do you storyboard? Do you just listen to the music over and over again, or?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I was with a production company, and I was with a very experienced producer who had been there and done that, and had downsized, and had a very, very small production company, and I was one of 3 people that they represented. And what happens is the record companies send you a track, and in those days you'd get a CD, and you'd listen to it and you'd write a treatment. And it really was a sausage factory, because you'd write, that you're about to enter this world of pain now, Nick, when you send stuff into festivals and then they get rejected. But that's the world of music videos, when you write 10 treatments and you think this is brilliant, they must make it. And then some other music video director gets it and you see what they've made and you think, what? My vision would have been beautiful, but anyway, it's a very competitive business, and it was fun. Things I came up with little stories and little things that join the dots visually, and in some of them some of them you just had to do a performance with another element. And when I was working with Graham Coxon, he wanted to do something based on Area 52, the secret military, so-called secret military base. And so I looked at 1950s comics, and I came up with a very graphic looking thing. And for some reason, he wanted his band to suddenly morph into cockroaches. So I had giant spiders, and I had cockroaches, and I had nuclear weapons being launched and bombs going off, and I'd seen Apocalypse Now, and there's a scene where there are 3 dancing girls in the middle of the jungle, quite near the end of the film, and I got a choreographer I chose a dancer, and the choreographer worked with this girl, and she did a dance from Apocalypse Now from that scene, and she's rendered sort of graphically. So it was fun, and I made some connections with various people within the industry, making images, grading stuff, sound people, and I've made connections through the design thing. So fast forward to now, I've been able to go back to some of those people and say, would you mind if you graded my film? And so it has helped, and some of the cameramen that I worked with I still had kept up with, and the cameraman on my film I'd worked with in music videos, so we had a connection, and I knew that he was an incredibly fast worker. So I've met it has helped me recently.
It's interesting. So we're obviously, just before we talk about Bad Acid, I think the one thing we should mention is the fact that you did a promotion for the FX channel for The Walking Dead.
That's right. Yeah, I after the music video sort of the bottom fell out of the market, I went back to design, because obviously that's how I earn, and I continued to do freelance work whilst I was doing the music videos. Like I did a title sequence for a film with John Malkovich, a very small little production for John Malkovich, and I got persuaded by my agent to take this full-time job at FX and National Geographic. And I thought, wow, they've got such great, content, as it were, great programs. And I was lucky enough to occasionally, the creative director would say, here you are, will you go out and make this? Because he knew that I could shoot stuff. He knew that I could do the whole thing, as it were. Storyboard it, shoot it, do the visual effects, and deliver it. And it was the second season of The Walking Dead, and they said, the creative director said, I've got this vague idea of something in slow motion, and I said, I've got an idea. So I did a Rick Grimes character who's hidden. We got the hat, and we got the outfits, and we got a Magnum, whatever he carries, and we got a special effects person to make up a zombie from one of the girls in the office, and there were other people from the office in it. I mean, it was super low budget. I think it was something like 6,000 quid or something. And I shot it on a Canon, one of those Canons that shoots film as well. But I shot the majority of it as stills, which then animated. So as they walked, I then used After Effects to put a sort of morph. So it's got this very strange sort of fluid, dreamy thing. And then I had the bullet spiraling out of the gun and going just about to hit the temple of the walker or the, you know, whatever. And then it went splat, The Walking Dead, you know, season 2. And somebody leaked it on the internet, and before it even gone out, and luckily it didn't have the FX logo on it. And somebody, I don't know how it got hold. I'd sent it to America for a producer to watch who was out in the States at the time, and I don't know whether it was his. I don't want to cast aspersions, but somebody leaked it, and it went viral, and it went on. And who's the author of The Walking Dead? The comic, was his name Roger Kirkland? Robert Kirkland?
I know Charlie. I think it's Charlie Adlard who did the comic,
right?
But who did the drawing?
Yeah. Well, Robert Kirkman. That's it. Robert Kirkman. Robert Kirkman said, "Oh, this is wonderful. It's fan made." And AMC in America went apeshit, saying, you know, who the hell's put this out? You know, they rang my company, and there was like a witch hunt. But in the end, I mean, and it went all over Twitter. I didn't even know what Twitter was then, but it was, you know, look at this, you know, this thing. It trended on Twitter for a couple of days or something like that, because obviously The Walking Dead was hugely anticipated with the second series. Gale Ann Hurd put out a thing saying, nothing to do with AMC and stuff like that, despite the fact that it then aired in London or UK on FX. So anyway, that I made that, and then I also made promos for American Horror Story and True Blood, and within the industry they won, you know, awards and stuff like that. But it was a very funny atmosphere at that company, and that's what made me think, I've got to write. Why am I not doing my own stuff? And as I commuted back and forth into London from where I live outside of London, I started writing then, because I thought I can do it. And I don't know about you, Nicholas, but for some reason, I thought that somebody one day would say, "Gosh, David, we love your music videos. You know, you're obviously a talented person. Here's a film. Go and make it." And then I woke up. And,
it's tough. We've spoken on with other guests on the show in the past, that actually moving from short films into feature films is actually a big ask. It's very difficult for people, and that actually the people I speak to, like Liam Regan, Banjo, and Kate Shenton, and so on, they do it themselves. You know, it's a question of putting a whole load of heart, soul, and a lot of your own money into creating these things. Then you can, you know, there are others. I was just thinking a couple of weeks ago, we were talking to Laurie Brewster and Sarah Daly behind Lord of Tears, who are more experienced about that and had bigger breaks. And, you know, it does happen. They were saying that they did it through Joseph Gordon-Levitt's website, Hit Record. That brought them a lot of attention,
right?
By being involved in doing that. So I think, you know, it does happen to people, and this is obviously the goal, you know, the holy grail that everybody wants. You know,
absolutely. So, I think the thing is sorry, carry on, Nick. You were talking, but there was a bit of lag.
No. I was going to say. So I think the question I wanted to ask you. You mentioned the fact that you use After Effects and so on. How has the technology changed in the period you've been? It sounds as if it's changed enormously, and where do you see it going? And you're talking about the fact that music videos, their budget has become low. Is this now because anyone can go, you can shoot 4K on your iPhone, and get some gorgeous quality?
I think that well, the whole industry has changed. In a way, it's more of a democracy in the respect that anybody can go out and shoot something. Anybody, as you say, you can shoot. And there was that film Tangerine,
Tangerine. It's set in Los Angeles, and it's filmed using. That was before the iPhone 6. That was on the iPhone 5S.
Yeah, that's right.
2K. It was shot.
So everybody can do it, and I think also in terms of software. I mean, when I first started, the machine of choice in graphics was called a Paintbox, and that was made by a company called Quantel. Now that could produce still frames that you could paint on, effectively Photoshop with 2 layers, and that cost £75,000. That box, and they then also sold this machine that I think I was telling you earlier about called Henry or Harry. And that was £250,000. And now you can go into your high street and you can buy a Mac Tower for £1.5 grand, £2 grand. You can get the software off Adobe for however much it costs. You can, all the information is there in terms of, I'm sure you've done it, Nick. I'm sure you've been looking at all the tutorials for your DaVinci. It's there, isn't it? And
it's quite. I have to say that lynda.com has been an absolute godsend, and it's literally. I mean, DaVinci, basically, Blackmagic have made DaVinci free, and they're just releasing. They've just released 12.5, so they're really going for the editing part of it now as well. Because obviously they're in a big part of the market space in terms of coloring. And they're now just, you need a part. My lovely Mac, which I only bought a year ago, is just not really. It's only got 1 gig of graphics on it. It's got 16 gig memory, but it's only got 1 gig of graphics, and it struggles. But it's designed. You can deal with it. It will deal with it, and so it just takes a long time to render stuff. It is quite extraordinary. You're talking about the Quantel machine. I can't remember if I've told this story before. You may remember it. There was a program called Painting with Light, which featured David Hockney and others.
Yes, I think he worked on a Quantel.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. It was a Quantel. It was a Quantel, and I just remember the fact that him getting so excited by this machine because he could literally take the pen and draw across the screen. And it didn't bleed. The color was absolutely perfect. It was quite extraordinary.
Well, that's the in terms of there is a massive democracy, isn't there? In terms of the fact that you can walk into the high street and you could buy everything that you need to maybe you'd have to go to a specialist website to get sound recording equipment, but anybody can make a film now. And I think the challenge, and then also this extraordinary thing, YouTube and Vimeo, and you can disseminate your work as well, and that's extraordinary. And so it's what I think that way I could have made a film a few years ago. It would have cost me 40,000 quid to shoot it on 16mm, and friends did do that and spent a huge amount of money. I've been bringing up a family, and my financial situation has been based on that, and now it's possible. I made Bad Acid on 12,000 quid for a 15-minute film, and obviously and I paid people as well. We actually, when we raised money, Suki, the producer, I thought it was a moral obligation to pay people personally. I know that other people don't. That's fine. That's what they do. But people got paid, and and we got the film made for very, very little money. The next challenge is getting people to see it, and you know, that's the next thing is, and also. And a lot of people say there's no money in shorts, there's no way of recouping your costs. And I've been to a couple of very interesting lectures at BAFTA, which suggest there are possibly ways of recouping your money, instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to stick it up on the internet for free and hope people find it. And, you know, and that's part, you said yourself, Nick, you worked in marketing. And I think I think it's part and parcel of it now. I think I posted something on Facebook, which you saw, which is a book of mine, which was a thing about sort of the Mondo films, the drive-in movies of the you know, the filmmakers in America who are completely outside of the system. And I can see that kind of world now, that there are people outside of the system who aren't getting money from studios, and there's a different model emerging. I think that people can make their own films, that they can disseminate them. It's just getting people to watch them, and you know, and that's why I'm here talking to you, Nick, because I want people to know about Bad Acid, and that's why I've avoided social media until last year, basically, and now I've sort of jumped in with 2 feet because I can see that that's part of the process.
Well, it's interesting. We were talking. You were talking about the fact that I said, you know, I'm talking with a marketing background. This is from back in the 1980s when I ran the marketing for an arts centre, and we had a mailing list.
Yeah.
You know, you have mailing lists now. I'm talking about the days where literally you had to fold a piece of paper and put it inside an envelope. I remember my boss designed this beautiful A3 sheet which folded down into an A5. It slotted into the envelope. I think we had, you know, it was extremely successful. We, you know, did amazing things with it. It's extraordinarily difficult now to keep on top of that. And I think one of the things I've really found in the last few months is that I've had to concentrate on really learning Da Vinci in order to be able to make sure that I got the film done in time in order to be able to get into the Fright Fest submissions and a couple of others as well. And that takes a lot of time, you know, and whilst I'm doing that, and also, you know, trying to run the show and actually try and keep on top of social media, etc. I've been very quiet on social media because simply haven't got the time to do, you know, to do all these things. And I think you know, you just need to be able to actually bring all this stuff together is tough. It takes a lot of hard work to be able to do that, and also to rise above the crowd. Yes, is very difficult as well. And I probably mentioned this on the show before. A couple of years ago, I went to a weekend at the Guardian newspaper, when I first started self-publishing, and they were saying it used to be that there were just a half a dozen papers, and that's who you know, and your local paper, and that's who you sent your press release. Now there are hundreds of podcasts, etc., that you need to do. So going back to because we've spoken for 3/4 of an hour already. So let's so one of the first things I'm going to do is point out the poster that is on the wall behind you, and just show people that is Bad Acid, and that is a Graham Humphreys poster. Is that right?
That's right. That is correct. And I think that I mean, I always when I got funding, I went privately to begin with, and I approached a couple of different companies, and luckily my executive producer Tom is a complete horror nut, and I said, look, you know, how do you feel about getting Graham Humphreys to do a poster? And he said, yeah, we've got to do it, you know, whatever it costs, kind of thing. And I kind of bumped into Graham a couple of times, and I spoke to him on the phone beforehand, actually, to talk to him about, you know, because I worked in advertising, you know, on the periphery, that kind of thing, and talked to him about doing some work in that vein. And I knew that I really wanted to have him. The first, I can't believe how young or how old he is, because I was 13 years old and I was at a friend's house and they lived in the woods, believe it or not. They lived on the edge of a wood, and their father had unfortunately committed suicide. And we watched The Evil Dead in their house, and the box, you know, that it was as scary as the movie itself. It was intriguing as the film itself. And then I saw the Cramps record Off the Bone, and he'd done the images for that. And obviously his later incarnations. It's like a dream come true for Graham to have done my artwork. And what you're saying about marketing, that helps, you know, because it's Graham. He has a track record. He has his own fan base. He's done an amazing job here, and we talked about, you know, when I commissioned it, what the kind of thing that I wanted, and he suggested things, and you know, it has done wonders for me in promoting the film. And I think that you know what, it's going back to the mailing list, Nick, because it's a physical property, and I send it to people, and I will send it to festivals when I get in. You know, I say that sounds incredibly arrogant, if I get in, and so you know, it's there as part of the tools of the marketing.
Yeah, no, I think I wonder actually if we've attended the same thing at BAFTA, where they were talking about making money. It was Shorts TV, possibly.
Yeah, yeah, we probably did. What was it called? Short-sighted. It was another thing called Short-sighted. It was another Short-sighted, wasn't it?
Yes.
And what's the story that came out of that? The one cut-through story from that was the guy from Shorts Network, right? And the one takeaway that sort of really excited me about this film is going back to what I was saying about the Grindhouse movie makers. Was the guy, I can't remember what the chap's name is, but he said they had a film on their network, and you can download it via iTunes, and I think they have a deal with a cable company in America. They obviously get a lot of attention around Oscar time because they put the Oscar nominated shorts on their site. So he was saying about a film that had been downloaded 400,000 times and had earned Shorts Network and the filmmaker $200,000 each. And it was a film called Sick Sex, right? Of course, people are going, yeah, Sick Sex, I want to see that. And it was a gentle comedy about a couple in bed who both got the flu, right? Talking about whether they should do it or not, right? Okay, but the title, obviously, people were going, yeah, Sick Sex.
What he specifically said was less about people, but adolescent boys sitting in their room at night, basically on their computer.
And they had a certain demographic when it started getting downloaded as well. Boy, they were disappointed. But you know, that marketing is in a title as well, you know, and when I came up with Bad Acid, it obviously has several meanings. It's about you know, it's about this washed up hypnotist who takes LSD. He's drifting on the bottom of the performance circuit, and he gets into a fight and he loses his lamp, and so he goes to a friend who gives him a genuine Babylonian lamp, which has got this provenance that it used to be owned by an old rock and roller who died in mysterious circumstances. But I didn't want a film called The Lamp or The Genie, because it kind of gives it away. And so, and the bad acid the acid is the sort of gateway drug. You know, I grew up, I'm sure you did, hearing all these extraordinary stories about acid, like, you know, you take one tab and you'd want to peel yourself like an orange, or you'd leap out of a window thinking you could fly, you know. And I thought that was, in terms of horror film, the kind of horror films that I grew up with, and I know you're slightly older than me, Nick, but we did discuss
not older than you.
We watched we watched those double bills on BBC Two, and the best films for me of that era, the anthologies, had a moral code. You know, there were people who transgressed and they got it in the end.
Yeah.
And the bad acid, to my mind, is it's not just about the LSD. It's not just about the fact that it's about fame. It's about the corrosive nature of fame, and it's about, you know, a narcissist who finally gets his wish at the end, you know, but not in the way that he wanted. And I thought, you know, a title that says something interesting and, you know, hooks you in a bit, perhaps. And that, to my mind, is part of the marketing of a film. You know, what's bad acid? Why would you want to take a trip?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. It's like it. I completely understand what you're saying, because often, you know, it is attract somebody. So it's the same as when you're marketing a book or when you're marketing anything, or, you know, in the old days of DVD stores, etc. Is like you're going to have today when you go through your Amazon list, as you scroll down, you're either looking at that little teeny tiny little picture, there, which one, you know, as I look at the poster behind you now, it's a very striking image. It tells you a lot. I know, you know, this is the part of the genius of Graham Humphreys, of course. And I mean, I presume you designed the title font for the poster?
No, Graham did everything. I just wanted to have him, because it's, you know, I'm a short filmmaker, and, you know, I don't know whether he gave us a special deal, but I just literally wanted him to have a commission where I didn't do a thing. You know, I wanted to hand it all over to him. He said to me, could you take some stills on set? So Tristan Bynt, who plays Marvin Maskelyne, he posed for me on the day that we were shooting this, the trip, the vision that he sees, in his full magician's outfit. And it's not even part of the film. There's no, that scene isn't in the film. And I like that, because, you know, that's kind of like going back to the old days, as it were. It's not a photoshopped image. It's not a still from the film. It's complete invention. The two other images within it, the girl and the genie, are in the film, but he's slightly adapted them. But yeah, it's a striking image, and it was, you know, and he did everything, and Graham, away you go. You know, I work in advertising, where I get all the time, could you make the logo bigger? Shut up, you know.
I appreciate that as well. It's kind of like, you know, I want the title of my film as big as possible, but I also know it's faces that actually attract people. You know, it's always good to have a face on the front. You know, I'm looking at the other people's darkness on the front cover of my mate Carlos behind me now. Just having, you know, that really, you know. Or Paddy's poster for Retribution, done by John Lynch, who's done the poster for The Night Whispered.
Right.
You've got the word Retribution, and it's a neon lit film. The whole style of Paddy's Retribution is a neon lit film. It's a fascinating thing as far as I'm concerned. Everything.
Marketing.
Yeah. You know, it's the advertising, it's the marketing as well. Is, you know, the way that you just communicate to people what your product is, and entice them to buy, or entice them to invest some time in it, and so on. Okay,
we're in such sorry,
no, carry on.
We're in such a crowded marketplace, right? And people will be following a couple of thousand people on Twitter, and suddenly will go past. And that's the time you've got. And if you've got a great image, maybe somebody will click on it. Yeah. You know,
people talk about clickbait as being really bad, but to be honest, that's what we're all looking towards doing, and so on. And then it's not only that; it's the fact that Facebook won't necessarily, you know, I've got 3,500, something over 3,000 friends on my personal page. I know that anything I post will only be seen by something like 4%.
Yeah.
You know, unless it gets shared around and so on. And I get really happy when I get, birthdays and so on, and Craig and Mai's anniversary. I know, you know, we've got lots of lovely now.
I know, I feel that.
A couple of hundred of stuff, and you think that's really great. I'm really, really pleased, and you just think, now please go and do the same for my picture.
I know. Yeah, but I mean, it's like anybody, as you know, marketing. You're when you were sending out mail outs, they say that it isn't the response rate to direct mail 1%, and that's higher than TV advertising.
Yeah.
You know, so you are battling the numbers, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think with film, you know, when we're making short films, the idea is that some festival will pick it up and champion it, or you'll get some good. And then this happened to a chap that I worked with. His brother is severely autistic, and he made a film called Mission to Mars, and it was about his autistic brother was obsessed with Metallica, and he filmed a documentary. They went on a road trip, him and his sister, and his autistic brother went on a road trip around America to see Metallica, and all the time in touch with Metallica's people in order that his brother could meet Lars, the drummer, because he was obsessed with him in the way that somebody who's autistic is. And the film, Metallica granted them the rights to play a couple of their tracks, and they couldn't get it into any festivals. And then one festival picked it up, Vumph, and it went, you know, it then went to Sundance, and you know. So I'm not suggesting that that's going to happen to Bad Acid. I'm not suggesting it's going to happen to any other of my films. But that, as you say, if you're shooting for Moon, that's what you want, is somebody to say, that's really interesting what you've done, you know.
It's very interesting. I think it is very interesting, and I'm very conscious of the fact this is my first time as writer-director.
How do you find writing? How do you find writing?
I have to say that I'm really looking forward to going back, because I've got two other short films in mind. I'm really looking forward, after I've got next week done, of actually sitting down and writing. And so I find it I also enjoy the editing as well. And I'm enjoying, I enjoy learning things apart from this. It's just, I'm such a Gemini. It really is very hard to keep my attention for more than 5 minutes on anything. And so when I'm learning something, I find it very interesting. I spent 150 hours last year editing a music video, a Machinima.
I've seen. I haven't actually watched it, but I did.
Yes, it's on my YouTube channel, EXGF, and for the band EXGF. I loved it. I really found it fascinating, and that's actually one of the things that I thought, you know, I'm really certain I can actually make a short film. And I've learned so much in the last, what is over a year since I had the idea. Yeah, that's a frightening thought. It's well over a year since I thought, I know, I'll make a short film. All my friends are doing it. All the people I'm interviewing it. It can't be that hard.
Little did you know.
Yeah, little did I know. Little did I know.
Because I find writing a slog. I have to say, I do find it. I have to force myself to actually sit in front of the computer and write, and then one of the what happened was I thought, oh, I want to write, and I went to the London Screenwriters Festival and saw some lectures, and I'd obviously read the books, the Sid Field book, and probably the Save the Cat and stuff like that, and then I saw people going back the next year. I didn't go back the next year, and I thought I'd rather spend my money making my film or a film than, because I think there's a whole industry around the film industry. There's a whole industry of people who are script doctors, or you know whatever it is, with training you how to use a camera or something like that. And I think that there's a vast industry that is making money out of wannabe filmmakers and
authors. And
authors, probably as well, and you know, probably coaching you how you can write. And I sent Bad Acid to one of these screenplay competitions and spent $50 on it, or whatever it was, $40 or something. And it said, you know, you'll get a full page of notes back. And when I got it back, this guy had said, it's an interesting story. I think you should concentrate on the police angle, and you know, a policeman makes an entrance into my film in the like 11th minute, 10th minute, or something like that, and I was like, what, you know, what? And it's you're only battling against somebody else's opinion. You're only, you know, and you've got to be brave enough to say, you know, what? Okay, Bad Acid might not be the best film ever made. You know, I'll put my hands up. It's, you know, my first short film. I've worked very hard. I think it's an interesting film. I think it's weird because it's like a character piece and a horror film, but it isn't really a horror film. I'd say it's more of a dark fantasy. But at least I've gone out and done it, you know, and tried it, and tried to make the points that Sid Field, you know, come into a scene late, get out early. I think that, you know, as I said, I find writing quite hard, but when you hit the sweet spot, when you hear a voice in your head, and it suddenly, you know, that's what I love about writing, is and that's my second film, Adonis and Aphrodite, is working with Madeline, and I had this idea, and I thought, and I said to her, look, I really want to write something just for you. I've got a vague idea, and she probably gets directors saying that, I don't know, all the time. Anyway, I went back to her with this, she said yes, and the guy Bruce Robinson, who wrote With Nell and I, describes it as sort of like tuning a radio and you suddenly hit the wave band and there's no static, and the voice comes out, and that's a joy. That's a real joy when that happens.
But you have to look. Listen, mate, we could talk all evening, all night.
I know, I'm sorry. I don't know whether anybody outside the film, anybody outside filmmaking will find this interesting. Maybe.
We've definitely had some people watching. We've definitely had. Thank you very much to everybody who has watched us. David, this has been absolutely fascinating. I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for having me on.
I enjoyed Bad Acid. It's a good movie. I really enjoyed Bad Acid, and I look forward to seeing what your next stuff. You mentioned earlier on that you're currently working on a horror anthology, so there'll be more about that. People can follow you on. Where's the best place to find out what's going on Facebook?
Or on the website, Twitter, actually.
Say again?
Or on the website, yeah. Twitter is The Chaudoir, so that's the, and then my surname is spelled CHAUDOIR, so that's at The Chaudoir. That's probably the best place to start.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'll make sure that there's a link on that on the YouTube video once this is all done. I would just like to remind people, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. The aim is to get up to 1,000 subscribers one day. Got a fair way to go, but it really does help folks. If you can subscribe, check out the Chattering with Nicholas Vince group on Facebook, and also check out the Night Whispered Facebook page, and there will be a website later this week. There will be a trailer later this week for the Night Whispered. I will keep you guys posted. There is a newsletter you can sign up to, which is both on Facebook and is already on my current website, www.nicholasvince.com. Check it out, guys. It's been a long time coming, but the Night Whispered is now there. It's terrifying to say this. You know, letting Mark Logan said it the other day. It's letting my child go out into the world. It's as bad as when I publish a book. It's really
just wait till you watch it with an audience, Nick. That's terrifying. That's horror right there. Can I just say one thing to your viewers? Nick, I didn't know Nick before I started campaigning to raise the money for Bad Acid, and Nick came in quite near the end and gave me a generous donation. I'd never met him before. My very first screening was at a small screening for a bunch of lovely people called the London Horror Society, and there I saw Nick, and I kicked myself that I didn't acknowledge him on the night. But I would like to say thank you so much for helping make that happen, and Anyway, I'll leave it
Well,
there.
thank you. Well, thank
so
you
much.
very much indeed, David. It's been absolutely fascinating talking to you. It's been very, very interesting and learning all about this. And, you know, I look forward to seeing more from you, sir. But I need to have some dinner now.
I know, absolutely.
Because we haven't eaten yet this evening. Right.
Okay.
This has been Chattering with Nicholas Vince. I've been chattering with David Chaudoir. Check out his movie Bad Acid. There is a link. There'll be a link on the YouTube. Follow him on Twitter to find out more about it. Take care of yourselves, folks. There is no show for the next 2 weeks. I have got to concentrate on The Night Whispered for the next week before I go away to Los Angeles for a week. I'll tell you more about that when I get back. It's just a holiday. It's nothing professional, nothing. But I'm going to be meeting with some cool folks whilst I'm over there. Yeah, so I will be back towards the end of July with another show, and I will see you all then. Take care, folks. Good night. Bye. Bye.
Bye.